Dr. Chaya. Thank you so much, Dr. Chaya, and welcome all to the session on sharing my experience in working with dementia and Alzheimer's. We will have a question answer session at the end, and I hope I am audible to all of you. Is my this thing very clear? All right, perfect. Now, what I do is I will just quickly take you through. Hold your questions till the end. I'll answer. Well, this is a live case because I worked with this patient for a year and been working with him for a fairly long period of time. Now, of course, he's in the 90s, so he doesn't practice yoga much. But at the same time, I will just take you through and then explain to you what are the. Is this screen visible to all of you?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we look in terms of what is it that we can look forward to, is a lot of people do work on the yoga intervention in Alzheimer's, but this is a person who has had multiple surgeries and at least 5 to 6 surgeries all across. And then he was in the early stage of dementia. He used to come to practice yoga with us at the Vasant Vihar clubhouse. And that's where one of the senior teachers just guided him and said, why don't you take him through and give him personal sessions? So that's how the entire journey started. And this is a brief background about what I am. I think that was well read earlier, so you can actually take it ahead. So what I'm going to do is to look in terms of, I'm not going to talk about what is research and what are the research methodologies, but what is it that I did and what are the kind of things which is available for you. So when you look in terms of introduction as far as dementia is concerned, okay, it is to do with more with brains. I think a lot of people don't seem to realize that the early warning stages of dementia today is early setting of slight not remembering names, not remembering people, not remembering events. So if you have this in the early stages, be mindful of it and don't brush it off saying ye old age ke saath hota hai. Aisa nahi. I think it's more in terms of it's surfacing where which you have this at a repetitive basis, take it very seriously, and then there are definitive intervention. So the moment you realize that this is setting in, in terms of memory, thinking, behavior, and the ability to actually carry on your own functions as it is, the better it is for you. Okay, and dementia, though it's not mentioned as heavily as diabetes and the heart diseases and blood pressure issues, it's more of a degenerative disease. And if you look in terms of statistics, India is also is aging very fast, and the early stages as early as about 35-40 people set into the dementia part. It's important to understand in terms of the symptoms which comes. So why did I choose this topic? This is something which is very close to me and I'm passionate about it. Number one, I worked with this gentleman for a year. By strange coincidence, just out of the entire thing, as far as the details is concerned, I used to have a log with me where I used to maintain everything. Sometimes it was quite difficult to deal with dementia patient, basically because I used to forget who I was. And I had to sit down and listen to him and then make him explain and repetitively go on doing the same things. And that is when some of the doctors were suggested, and I actually visited his doctors along with him and understood that it is just more in terms of making him good. So not only is the ability to be very patient and compassionate, your ability to document becomes very important. That's something I think which we all miss. Please document anything that you're happening. You have every time that you see stage here, you can actually maintain a small document and keep writing it down. That is immensely valuable when you're actually going and doing any intervention that time. The saddest part of the whole thing was he lost a lot of money in terms of he used to just go to the bank, withdraw the money and just leave it on the counter. Unfortunately for him, even the banks could not help him because somebody used to come and just take it away. So it was to get him his confidence back, and the intervention started about a year. So the whole thing going back and how it was actually structured was to look in terms of the hypothesis, the method of research. I actually adopted the case study method. And the research was to look in terms of early stages. If you look at it, it's in the early stages. The later stages of dementia and Alzheimer's has no cure at this point of time, though a lot of papers are being published the impact of yoga, but it's not scientifically proven. What we did was to look in terms of what are the kind of things which is there. And I had to take special permission from his relatives. Everything was signed, everything was documented. His daughters gave me the permission to actually do it. And the entire history, where it was, what was his lifestyle, what is his current profession, whether he had any physical pain, what are the kind of sleep patterns, the diet which you were. You're talking about a fairly senior level guy, but you're talking about somebody who's in the 75 years plus. And then why the yogic intervention also was for two reasons. One was basically to look in terms of what are the kind of things that she can actually talk to. I mean, he was a widower, so he was pretty lonely. So, so from a let's say a compassionate point of view, where he used to just sit and talk, he was very well read in terms of what it was. So it made life pretty easy. Well read with all the scriptures also. And the doctors whom we met, they said just give him company, as and when he is willing to do some of the interventions, you go ahead and then do it. So in terms of the background, as I said, he was part of a yoga group practicing. He was to, and the mandate from the doctor was to actually have somebody who is trained, I mean, who's qualified in terms of how it would be. So for a couple of at least 2 weeks, I just had to sit down and make him understand a lot of things repetitively. He used to forget everything, so you had to do it repetitively, and then the documentation went on. So I did study, collate, and present this yoga intervention for a period of about 3 months to 4 months. And then he said you can extrapolate the data in terms of how it worked, because after some time there was a little bit of a gap, about a month gap, and then again he fell a little sick. So we had to do this intervention, then extrapolated this thing. And all the this thing was conducted at his place. I personally used to go and visit him. The time was in the morning. He usually used to have a light breakfast and then start off with me. And then at his premises, evidence was collected by videos. I shot videos, I took photos, and all the existing medical records which were there. I have a copy with me, and which can be always be given. And a confidentiality agreement was signed, and both his daughters gave consent in terms of what this is very important, specifically when you are dealing with specific case studies of this nature. It becomes important to actually have a confidentiality agreement, signed, and then take it ahead. So we had something called the EPYQ, Essential Properties of the Yoga Questionnaire. You can see the sign it there, and that's where my teachers in MA Yoga Shastra in Somaya were a great help, and specifically Dr. Rudrak Saklikar as well as Sabir sir. They were very instrumental in guiding us in terms of saying these are the kind of things which you should do and then take it ahead. I had no guide as far as this thing is concerned, because this was part of the assignment which was supposed to be submitted and I had to defend it. And so this is the place where you can actually get it. So because there was no psychometric property measurement, and they don't quantify the components of the interventions being implemented. It is more in terms of what was the state before and what was the state afterwards. And specifically, as far as he was concerned, whether his diet improved, his sleep pattern improved, whether he was very cohesive in his way he behaved, and you were not forgetful of this thing. A simple thing like his specs, which he was used to wear. He used to sit on the specs and forget his specs. All of these areas which we just said and say, okay, we do this with you. Is it improving? And then make him write. The important part of it, apart from this intervention of yoga, journaling helps, especially in anything to do with cognitive behavior. If you have anybody going through this phase where they're forgetful, ask them to write. Even as for all the practitioner itself, journaling really, really helps in terms of just writing your thoughts together. I do it regularly. I have my notebook, which I keep writing my thoughts. And then it really helps to actually put your things together and keep the brain sharper. So journaling is one thing which I would recommend here. And then this questionnaire, which I had, basically formulated, was not by myself alone. And then, it was sent across to a couple of doctors who gave their feedback. They were general practitioners, including the doctor who was treating him. And they basically pruned it and said, this is how the questionnaire should be. And this was vetted by our internal guide, Rishikesh sir, from faculty part of Sumaya College. And he vetted it out and has gave his intervention also. And the same was administered to him. And to be fair, he cooperated a lot in terms of how it would be. And there's something called as a demographic questionnaire, which is called the state of mindfulness scale. All of these things are available for you. You can actually look at it in terms of this thing. So what are the parameters that we analyzed? How is we reliable? Do we agreemented? Over what are the kind of discrimination that we use? What are the exploratory analysis? Mota, just put it simply put together. Every day, pre, post, and every day Shavasana was mandatory. He used to relax him a lot. And also, apart from journaling, he was a lover of music. So he used to listen to good music, very fond of having news. So news, we cut it down because of the negativity part of it, more so from a music point of view, which was good. And he was well read. So he could, basically read the Ramayana as well as Mahabharata. And he was fond of reading Mahabharata more than the Ramayana part of it. And there were some 61 questions which we administered. And then there was, the actual part of it. This is available, with me in terms of what I did. So as far as the conclusion is concerned, in terms of, what happens is, if you look in terms of the comfort and the capacity, one good thing which really worked for me is he was convinced that yoga could help. That faith and belief is something which is very, very crucial as far as any intervention is concerned. A lot of myths surrounding yoga gets smashed when you actually deal with this, and there was nothing for me to look up to. All the literature which were available were in the US, and some of them very sketchy, and some of them were available in the public domain, some were not. So the actual intervention was more like me and him together, and then doing whatever tools that we have in terms of what could be done, and then take it ahead. Then there were several rounds of discussions with the relatives, his patients, and because he was a widower, he used to have a person who used to sit for the daycare, one person used to come in the night. So we used to vet it out and see what are the kind of things which is there, how is it happening. And more importantly, with this intervention, two things happened. One is his ability to be more, let's say, clearer in his thoughts, not being forgetful, number one. Number two, more importantly, he used to feel very comfortable in his diet, whatever sparse diet that he used to eat. He was very comfortable in doing that. And his sleep pattern improved. That was major. He was able to sleep better and feel fresh better. And then he used to go for his round of walks, which he used to forget. So these things happened together. There were a lot of bonding which used to happen because he had two daughters who were not with him. They were married and they stayed in the western part of it. So it was like us stepping into his role of being taken care of and then coming back. Sometimes out of the blue, he was just 4 blocks away from where I stay. So he used to just come back and say, I just feel like coming and meeting. So that used to happen. Sometimes he used to forget his way, and I had specifically told the watchman and the security at our house so that if he comes in, just bring him back and then drop him back. These are the kind of things which happen. And in terms of three, let's say, characteristic that is required from a yoga teacher is you should be interested. I mean, it is not something which we are just, doing it for the sake of doing an assignment. We're genuinely interested in the patient's welfare, number one. And it requires monumental patience. I mean, I think a couple of times it can be really frustrating to go back and forth and doing the same thing. The iteration sometimes used to be there. One day he used to say, I'm okay. The next 10 days there used to be a gap. Then again, it used to be, going back and forth. The timings used to change. Sometimes you say, come in the morning, sometimes in the evening. All of those things put together in terms of how it would be. Sometimes you used to just be very rude. Say, look, why are we doing all of this thing? All this is bakwas when you were in deep pain. Other times was in the extreme, saying that you look after me so well and things like that. And it is nothing to do with money. I never talked in terms of what are the kind of money which was there for these sessions and things like that. So all in all, the doctors, us, and everybody, including his daughters, were keen that it goes on. And right now, in the intermittent stages, he comes and goes, but he is able to do some of these interventions himself. That's the plus point. He has to have a diary. He used to write it down in the diary and forget where he had kept the diary. So I had to actually go back, and his cognitive ability was such that he was able to talk on the mobile. So that was one good thing. So he used to just call up and say, I'm missing this. So I used to go and just help him retrieve that journal and then take part of the entire part of it. So the dimensions which were basically mentioned for these things in terms of the acceptance and compassion, which I talked about. His breathing used to be very erratic at the time when he used to start. And he was very, like we said, the strict kind of a person, like, it must happen in this particular way, and a set pattern of his behavior where it used to affect him in the breath work, sometimes very heavy, sometimes just about adequate. Physically, he was good postures, a little bit of hunch. There used to be a lot of things which we used to do on the body awareness part of it. What I would again and say that body awareness in terms of what is happening, we sometimes underestimate the power of Sushmaya. A lot of times when we do the intervention, we're in a hurry to go ahead. I did nothing else but Sushmaya with him for almost 4-5 months before he got everything moving, and then started the other thing. It really works in terms of seeing how it is, because you are able to do help him in terms of his the body awareness, his breath awareness, in terms of how it would be. Health benefits was totally left to the doctors. They used to re-emphasize apart from me, so that helped. And because he was alone, and in terms of giving it all, it used to be like a more of a one and a half hours of investment, or 1 hour 15 minutes, and then sit and have breakfast with him. So usually set you back by about 2.5 hours every alternate day, sometimes every day. And then, in terms of the social aspects, he started mixing with the people in the society. He was not very friendly with his neighbors. Now he was able to be friendly with his neighbors. And this also tells him in terms of saying, look, this is what life is all about. I can be here, gone tomorrow. So that spirituality in the dimension part of it came. He took a special interest in having a briefing on the yoga philosophy. So we had a look in terms of what are the different texts which is here. He was more keen on the Upanishads part of it and the Vedas, because and he was South Indian, by the way, so Tamilian. So he was more interested in understanding it from the Vedic point of view. And he still keeps reading, though he's not very physically active and his eyesight has slowly deteriorated, but he still reads with a very good conversational, at least, a wacky sense of humor. So the tools which I use, which I said, and these are the things which are available. And again, thanks a lot to my guide. He was able to tell, apart from them, which I didn't know, he helped me out with this questionnaire, and we did all of this thing. And this is a single person case study. It does not involve anybody else. So even a single case study, which I checked with the faculty in Somaya, they said, if this is something which you've done for a year, we'll make an exception. And we'll have, otherwise, single case studies is normally not something which is very common. So it was a single person case study that we did. And the good part, by some stroke of design, right from the beginning, I was able to document and show it to all the peoples, and they were very happy in terms of what was being shown. So in terms of the literature review, these are the three things that I did. And all these three are mentioned here in terms of, and it's more in terms of cognitive functions. And right now, as we said, cognitive functions and the way the entire thing is coming in and at that point of time, I did not know much about NLP. Now I have also learned about NLP. If I had known, I would have done some intervention with the NLP part of it. And in look in terms of how his balance was. A couple of times he had fallen down while just walking from the kitchen to his place where he used to eat. So that balance, what it can do. And nothing to do with online, though some of the things which are available from an online chair yoga. So we do not call it chair yoga. He used to sit down. He was actually very comfortable in sitting down, and then doing all the exercises, and he used to do everything very comfortably, sitting, standing, supine, prone, all the positions that we used to do. Gentle movements in terms of how it would be, and wherever it was feasible, we used to just help him with the things where his wife also used to sit and watch. Sometimes she also used to participate. Unfortunately, she passed away ahead of him last year. So during that time, he was a little heartbroken. So again, we had to go. Grief combined with some of these things can be quite a challenge. So sometimes you have to don different hats and then take it ahead, but it was worth it in terms of what was being said. So if you look in terms of what are the kind of things which I did with him, this is the entire thing as far as the intervention is concerned, which is what again suggested that you just take this and then do it. Yeah. So if you look at it, asanas, you were very comfortable in all of these things. He used to love SURGERIES. I mean, he used to do it very slowly. Sometimes he used to forget, but at the same time, he used to SURGERIES do downs with a slow pace. All the other part of this is mentioned, and he was very good with Vipreet Karma. The leg used to go up very well, and that's basically because in these early stages of his career, he used to walk a lot, so that helped. And he was very good in chanting in terms of how it would be. So every day, though I have not mentioned it here, we used to, it's there, sorry. Shavasana was administered. So he used to like that a lot. Sometimes just sleep off and I have to walk off. I had a, keys to his house. So whenever something was required, I can always used to go back and talk to him in terms of how it would be. So overall put together, the yogic intervention does help. Though it's very slow, it's not that recognized that it can be administered in the early stages of dementia. These are the actual photographs. If they asked me to show it, and we had taken permission, they said you can use these, without revealing the face. As you can see, he's comfortable in sitting. He's comfortable in doing things there. Most of the sessions are recorded and kept in terms of this thing. This is even given to his family and his doctors, which is there. And, we used to actually experiment and figure out what are the kind of sequences which work. Sometimes the session used to be just sitting and listening to, and that also happens with elderly people. You just become a sounding board where you can actually sit and listen to the entire part of it as it is going wrong in terms of how it would be. So if you look at it from a point of view, how it would be, maybe it's a little bit of a fate also involved. That he was there, and he was next door, and for the Vasant Vihar clubhouse where I practice, it's a 3-floor each structure. So he was not able to come up the stairs. So it so happened that I was also keen that I could help him out in some way. So we used to start, and he was on the 6th floor of a building very close to the place where we practice. So we used to go to this place and do it. But he was a very good follower. He never used to have any hangs in terms of whatever it would be. He used to follow it very clearly in terms of doing it. Plus, he was more than happy to share the data in terms of what it was, and that we ensured that all of these things are kept confidential, and it's available to all the fraternity, including both the daughters who were there, who were married and stay separate from it. If you look at it, this is available still with me, and it is in a guided fashion, which I sometimes used to go back and check in terms of, because you've gone ahead and done a lot of things. So now when we go back specifically for such cases, it becomes easier for us to talk about. So that's what it is. I wanted to present it out, and though I speak a little fast, I'm sure people would have questions, and I would be more than willing to take questions from all of you.